Okay, welcome everybody to the Board of Finance meeting. I'd like to rise for the pledge. Fillmore has the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America, and
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the April 29th meeting. I need someone to move it.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Just a show of hands.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Next, chairman comments. So what I'm going to do is, I just want to use a document that Stacy and I have been kind of playing with the numbers to start our conversation with. It is not, this is really just Stacy and I playing with some numbers to see if we can get to a zero increase in the mill rate. So Lauren, if you could put that up.
Yep.
So if you look at the second column was what we revised from our last meeting with the additional reduction from the Board of Education. The column next to that is what we could do in order to get to a zero mill increase. So in the first column, we had talked about $500,000. If we increase it to $673,000, since the two referendums have been postponed and the additional funding we were going to put in CIP to prepare for the bonding is not needed immediately, that can go to zero. That would decrease, that would make the increase to the budget expenditures 2.18%, which is down from 2.65%. We now, in terms of calculating the mill rate, can use the additional lease money, which is $300,000. The mill rate increase then would be zero. The mill rate would be 28.35. It goes down slightly. So that means there'll be zero impact to taxes, monthly or yearly. And again, that is all reached by doing an additional reduction to CIP of 400, including the revenue from the new lease of 300,000 and additional use of the fund balance of $173,000. So this would allow us not to cut any services that we are trying to protect, but it would help not to increase anybody's taxes in the town. So I just wanted to get this out there as a possibility, a way to start the discussion. And we can either discuss it now. We do have Board of Finance comments next. So we can use this time to discuss it if you would like. Stacy is on the line. She can help run through any of the numbers or any questions that people have. But again, this is a way for us to keep the mill rate down and not to have any increases in people's tax bills.
Jean, I have a question.
Yep.
On the additional revenue, the lease, the OLM prep, you have 300,000 for revenue. The lease is actually for 400,000 though, right?
Right. So that was minus the expenditures and our requirement for the nurse and the busing.
And
So
I
it's
know
net.
that's a net figure. We would not include the whole figure in there.
Well, I mean, you could, but for me, to be totally transparent, I think we have to, it's revenue, but there is going to be additional expenditures. So for me, I just wanted to show the actual number and not an inflated number of what we could get from it.
Is that how we treat other situations like that? I'm trying to think of a comparable and I'm not really sure if I know of a comparable.
So when we go to calculate the mill rate, we would have to know what the exact revenue number is. So, so anything that we use for revenue, we would do it that way.
And
This
we
would
would
be the
not,
net impact. This would be
Right.
the net impact of
Net
the
impact,
400
right.
right.
minus the expenditures.
And
So
we
you could-
haven't taken the expenditures out prior to now because the lease hadn't been signed prior to now,
We
right?
haven't added them in because they weren't into.
Right, we have not
So
included
that's why you
the
just net
lease.
out that number and you get to the same place, Jude.
Mhm.
So we could put the 400 in for revenue, but then we'd have to stick another 100 in.
For
Okay.
expense,
Okay.
exactly.
Right,
So just
correct.
that side.
For this,
This is just, as for this
exercise,
purposes, it's just a way for us to look at,
The net revenue
the
number
net
to the
revenue.
town.
Mhm.
Yeah. From my perspective, I think we've received a lot of feedback from the town with the uncertainty of what the future holds. I think the feedback we received has been mixed, right? People understand that the value that the town brings, the services that the town brings to the people of the town, and they don't want those services cut. But on the other hand, because of the uncertainty from COVID and everything else and everyone's personal financial situation, I think having the mill rate stay the same from last year and not having an increase to taxes in the next fiscal year, I think would be welcomed by the people of the town. And, I'm personally in favor of this approach.
Well, and let me put another, given that I'm such a nitpicker, this mill rate is actually going down by 1%. 28.35 is 1% lower than 28.63. So we will
That's
have
not from last year though, right? That's
No,
just,
that's from
that's
the
where the-
proposal
that's
last
where it
correct,
week.
that's
was
what
okay.
we
last time.
recommended.
yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
I'll take it back.
No, it's all good. Listen, if we want to take the mill rate down a point, we can start talking about it again. but- I'm only kidding.
Any other thoughts, comments,
Yeah,
questions?
I like this. I like this approach. I think it will, having a flat mill rate will satisfy a lot of people. There are going to be some people who won't be satisfied with anything, but this will, we've been very frugal with it, and we're getting back some of the fund balance for the taxpayers, and having a flat mill rate, I think is very good. We do have to keep in mind that that we're not talking about the budget for this May and June. We're talking about from July through next June, and so we have to be prepared for things opening back up, the beaches opening up come July or August, et cetera, et cetera. And certainly we have to be prepared for maybe a snowstorm or who knows what. So the town services do have to keep going. And I think this is a very responsible way to keep them going without being an undue burden.
And my 2 cents, if it's, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, there's not a lot of heavy lifting in this. You took money from the fund balance and we reduced the CIP. And what I mean by that is, obviously, we're not cutting services. You're not doing anything to hopefully decrease the services for our residents and taxpayers. I forgot who said it. I think anybody would welcome a 0% tax increase. I don't care who they are. My only thoughts of all of this, specifically with CIP, is at some point you're going to want to be doing other things, whether investing in your road or schools or pick what it is. And we just got to be mindful of that in the future, because we're going to have to increase these numbers.
Right, and I
Yeah.
think,
I think if we're looking for a 0% tax increase, I don't think we need to spend a lot of, and we can spend as much time as anyone wants, but I think this is a decent way to go. But I just want to be mindful of the future. That's all.
right, and I think that's a valid point, John. And again, we have to see when the referendums go through. The CIP is still being funded, I think
That's my next
1.2
question.
million. Stace?
Yes, that was my only other question, Gene, was what,
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
Stace, you're muted, Stacy.
Sorry, the CIP is still funded at 3.540 million, which is $40,000 more than last year.
Is that at least 3% of the total budget?
Oh, yeah.
Of the total budget?
3.5
Yeah, of the town,
3%
yes.
of 90 is
The town.
2.7.
Right. So I think that's, if that helps to ease some of that concern, But you are correct, John. We are going to have to address capital at some point and, probably sooner rather than later, but it will get us through and still be able to do the projects we planned for and still have funds. Because remember, the CIP is not just pay as you go, it's the planning mechanism. So
And
this,
that's, yeah. And
go ahead.
Jude, I didn't mean to jump in there,
No,
Jude, but
that's okay. Go ahead.
that's the part that I'm worried about. I appreciate what you're doing here, but my concern was mostly with the CIP, that even though the referendums are not going forward this fall, they or something like them are going to go forward at some time, you would hope in the next couple of years, along with Academy, along with other projects that we know are out there, but haven't been put paper to pen yet. And whether that is doing something regarding the sea level rise, which we haven't saved anything for yet, or doing something with some of the assets in town to try to increase our revenue, like the surf club. We've got, in the next 5 to 10 years, we've got so much out there that we have to deal with. And we have this new regulation in place. We have this new planning mechanism, which is definitely we're going to feel the limits of that in the next couple of years. And this would be a year, because the referendums aren't going forward, where we could really bulk up and fund the CIP in a way that would carry us through those leaner years that are going to start in just a few years. So it kind of I think that's where we had been when we had been looking at putting an additional 400,000 in. And yes, that was before the pandemic. I do think that the town, what we've heard are a lot of people who were in favor of the budgets as they were, and some people who want a zero budget. I would like us to see, I'd like to see us not bring that additional CIP all the way down to zero. I think that's
right,
looking.
but it's not zero.
It's $3 million.
It's $3
Yes,
million.
I understand that.
Right.
But
And I
from the
think
400,000, which we already had voted on, which we were going to include, I'd like to
Mhm.
see us still have some of that in there for the same reasons that we knew then, that we are going to need that in the next few years, not looking too far off down in the distance.
Yeah, but
And
I think people, Jude, are more worried about 20 days and 20 weeks from now, not 20 years with the flood issues. So I just think we need to be a little bit more thoughtful about what people are feeling and going to be impacted by today. Yes, I agree with you. We've got a lot coming down the pike. And hopefully the people in town can help try to increase and drive more commercial tax revenue for us that we can leverage, right, as a means to generate more money into the coffer so we can do more with it rather than relying 99% on the residential tax base. But, I agree with you. There is going to be a lot coming down the pike. But for right now and for this year and for where we are, I think that we've tried to do whatever we can. And remember, it's not a zero budget increase. The budget is going up. It's just the mill rate we're keeping the same as last year. So we are
Right.
increasing the budget over last year.
If I can just
Yeah, and
clarify, Jude, if I can just clarify, the 3.5 million is what the CIP committee recommended. So it's not lower than what the actual committee recommended, just to clarify that.
Right, and that's for the actual projects that we have going on. But as we discussed the regulation, we all knew that we were going to have to build the CIP up now, because in a few years, we will be restricted in what we're going to be able to fund. And so that's what I'm talking about, Kenny. And, I'm not talking about projects 20 years down the road, Ken. These are coming up quicker than apparently you realize. There are projects.
The math easy with the 20 weeks and the 20.
Yeah, well, I think that the projects, especially some projects, we're not going to have a choice of putting off.
Yeah, we don't even know where they are yet. They haven't even been to referenda. So I think just having, it's always important to look to the future. And I think this board has done a tremendous job with our 5-year plan, looking at 5 years ahead. And the reason why I think we still have our AAA rating is because of what we're doing as a board of finance. I think we should all be very pleased with where we are. But I also think that this really puts a sharp line of sight into some of the challenges that people might face in the upcoming 12 months. And I think this is a good way to pursue and help soften the blow for a lot of the residents of the town of Madison.
Fillmore,
Madam
did you?
Just in fairness, Jude may be frozen. Her picture's frozen. I don't know
Oh,
if
she's frozen? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Oh, I
she's
thought she was letting me talk.
Just a comment, if I might, I appreciate your comments, Jude, and as you recall, I was a big supporter of our increases in the CIP. But as I recall, the regulation, it's
Yep.
the CIP plus debt service would be, was it 10%? Yeah, and I did a very back of envelope, and it's looks like as we're talking about now, it's at 8%. If you add the on top of the 3.5 for the CIP, if you add in the school debt and the town debt, so we're already at 8%. Now, that's still a little shy, but it's not as bad as it could be. Now, if we fast forward a year, let's say that that these both of these projects get voted on next spring sometime, and that they get approved. Let's say the town approves them. It's still going to be, Stacy, you can correct me because times have changed, but it's still probably going to be a year or two before we actually have to get the bonds for any of these big projects. And so we will have time to nudge that 8% up to the 10% on the CIP. Now, this is just sort of qualitative thinking. I think we will have time should they pass next spring. And if they put them off till next fall, then that's even more time.
Madam Chair.
John, did you have something?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't want to I'm going to support this. I wanted you to know, and I was just trying to bring a point. At some point, we're going to have to step it up a little bit. That's all. And we got to take.
I agree with that.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I was trying to say. We're going to do the best we can. These are unprecedented times, but we also, Ken, you said, 10 days, 20 weeks. Gene, I've heard you say many times, we're not just preparing for today, we're preparing for the future.
Right.
The only point I was trying to make is that
Yeah, it's a good
No,
point.
I
too,
agree.
John.
Yeah, I think it was an important point to make, John.
And I think everybody agrees with you.
Yeah. Any other comments? I want to go to the public and give them time, if everyone's okay with that. Lauren, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, for any public that is in attendance that would like to speak, you can raise your hand by opening your participant panel, and I will call on you. When you do give public comment, please state your first and last name and your address for the record. Just so everyone is aware, there were 3 emailed public comments received between last Wednesday and today. I sent them to the board as an email this evening, and they will be included as part of the public record in the minutes. So we have the first public comment from Gus Horvath. Gus, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Okay, did I activate my microphone now?
You're good.
You're on.
Okay, I keep forgetting that I have to activate it on the screen. I just wanted to commend you guys for the things that you're considering and getting down to a tax freeze and keeping the mill rate the same. In the issue, I was on SIP for a couple of years, so I'm maybe a little more familiar with the program than most of the public. What I might suggest is you were showing $300,000 for the lease, and someone, I don't recall who mentioned about going with the full 400,000. why not stick with the 300,000 as a revenue and put the other 100,000 as a placeholder in SIP? So I know you went from 400,000 to 0, but I think maybe as a placeholder, put 100,000, that additional 100,000 in there for SIP. And on the issue of long range type of thing, and the costs that are coming up that you're not aware of, some of you may not be aware of them, but if you would look at the coastal resiliency plan for the town of Madison, it's showing sometime after 2025 that the 2016 dollar cost is somewhere in the area of 25 to 30 million dollars. So again, that's maybe not something that you should be worrying about exactly today, but in a couple, 3 years, you're going to see some of that stuff coming up in SIP. So that's the point I want to make. You might want to, not only for things that you know that are coming up, that some of the things that you might know that are coming up, 25 or 30 million dollars for coastal resiliency coming up after 2025, between that and 2030, that it is a good idea to build up that reserve that you're talking about. And as I say, my feeling is put $100,000 into the placeholder. So again, thank you very, very much for what you've done. And I've sent Gene some information about what's going on in some of the other towns. And one of our neighboring towns is looking at a 1.13 mill rate increase after cutting $2 million. And we're talking about, I looked at a number of newspapers on the internet, and one of them is my old hometown, Bridgeport. I look at the Connecticut Post, and Trumbull is talking about cutting $2.25 million out of their budget, most of it out of the schools. And they're talking about eliminating all freshman sports and cutting the staff, school staff, by 28 teachers. So we're very, very fortunate, and the Board of Selectmen, you and the Board of Finance in Madison should be commended, both you guys who are in office now and the ones who preceded you, with maybe the exception of Phil. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gus, I
Gus.
think you should take your idea of eliminating all high school athletics to the next public hearing and stand up and espouse that.
Thank you, Gus.
Okay.
Lauren?
Yep. No one else right now is raising their hand, so
Okay.
I think we can
Sounds
move
good.
on then from public comment.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is discuss and take action to approve the final town budget for fiscal year 2021. Stacy, can you give me that exact number?
Yes, based on your proposal, it's $28,081,832 for the town only.
I need it moved.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
discussion.
Is this where I would make a motion to
So there's
increase
a
the,
motion on the table already.
all right,
So we're
To-
following the agenda. So if you, right, so you can't just add the motion. So we're following the agenda. You can either vote yes or no.
Okay.
And then if it's no and it goes down, then we can have we can open the agenda and add another motion, but you can discuss whatever you want at this point.
Madam Chair, I think, I hate to jump in, but I think that if the motion is made and seconded, that Mr. Roberts would say you could make a motion to amend. I
Correct. Well, right. But
Yeah.
that's what we're doing right now. We're in a discussion. So if it's decided that we're going to amend it through the discussion, then we would amend it, but not create a whole new motion,
Okay,
just to amend the motion, because right now the motion's already on the table. All right, so discussion. So Jude, now would be when you would discuss it.
I do think that it's very commendable to try to reach the 0 increase in the mill. I think that looking at $99 increase in taxes over a year, less than $10 a month, is something that we really ought to seriously consider doing. And I would consider that putting at least $200,000 into CIP is something that's just a drop in the bucket of what we're going to need. And I agree with Gus when he was talking about projects that we're not going to be able to put off. This town is known for putting off and kicking the can on all kinds of projects when it can. But when you're looking at the sort of issues that are going to come up with sea rise, and they're going to come up in the next 4 to 9 years, not in the next 20 years, that we ought to take advantage of being able to put a little bit more in CIP now, when it's not going to cause as much of an economic impact as it will in a few years from now, when we're looking at trying to fund those expenses along with other referendums that'll be going forward.
Any other
That's all.
discussion? Thank you. Any other discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next, discuss and take action to approve the final Board of Education budget for the fiscal year 2021. Stacy, do you have that exact number?
$58,551,701.
I need a move. I need it moved.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion. Any discussion?
No, not from here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Now we have a series of motions that I'm going to actually have Stacy read, because there's several that before we set the mill rate, we have to vote on and agree to. So Stacy, I'm going to hand it to you. So if you read it, then I'll ask for it to be moved and I'll ask for a second. Go ahead, Stacy.
Okay. The Board of Finance voted to include state revenue in the amount of $413,125 in the mill rate calculation.
I need it moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Discussion.
What, just for information, Stacy, what is that 413? Can the state afford that whopping amount?
Probably not, Gilmore.
Probably not.
Well, hopefully that is just including the LoCIP funds as well as in lieu of the pilot money for Hammond Asset. Everything else we are not relying on.
States, just for my knowledge, what's that compared to last year?
This is the exact, it's off a few dollars from last year, John.
Thanks.
It's not a lot of money.
No.
It's a-
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Go ahead, Stace.
The Board of Finance voted to allocate $673,000 of the prior year's fund balance to reduce the amount raised by taxes.
I need it moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second?
Discussion.
Just real quick, would the fund balance be projected at the end of this? That's all. If we need this 673.
So I had, hang on one second. So at the end of last fiscal year, we were at about $13.4 million, and that does not include any activity for this current fiscal year. So right now we're looking at additional increases, which brings it close to
At least 14.
over 15.5 million.
Pretty stout.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion?
But of that, John, 8.3 million is set aside as the 10% untouchable amount.
The regulation, the Board of Finance 10% regulation.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I don't know if you
Opposed?
want a hand wave or,
I just, opposed, abstention, motion carries.
Okay,
That's
next one, the Board of Finance voted to set a mill rate for the fiscal year 2021 that includes a tax collection rate of 98.75.
I need it moved.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
discussion. All in favor?
aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Get Stace.
Okay, the board voted to read the following into the record. In compliance with the state law requiring that tax bills indicate the number of mills the anticipated state revenue would equate to, this year, the bills would show a 28.49 mills.
I need it moved.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Second.
discussion.
The thing we showed on the paper was 2835. Is that not right?
Yes, this 28.49 is assuming 0% state revenue. And that's a
Oh.
requirement to notify the taxpayers
Got it.
what the mill rate would be if we did not receive any state revenue.
Understood.
our-
Thank you.
I think our citizens will be delighted to see that the state is kicking in 0.14 mils.
All in
Maybe.
favor? Oh, sorry,
I just said maybe.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe it's
All
right.
in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. I'll then go back, discuss and take action to approve the mill rate for the fiscal year 2021. Stacy, can you tell me exactly what that will be?
28.35.
So
I need it
moved.
moved. Second,
Second.
John, yep. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, discussion. Any discussion?
That is the same mill rate as last year, right?
This
Exactly.
current fiscal year that we're in, yes.
Mhm.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Now we have another opportunity for public comment. Lauren, I'll turn it over to you.
So as of right now, no one is raising their hand. For any of the public that is in the meeting tonight, if you would like to make public comment, please raise your hand in the panelist box, or sorry, the participant box, and I will call on you. You will need to state your first and last name and address for the record.
May I say a few words, Lauren? I don't know if you have people
Yeah.
raising their hands, but
No one else is.
okay. I apologize. I'm going to keep off the video because I just exercised and it wouldn't help anybody seeing that right now. But I just want to, first of all, say, thank you very much for the efforts of the Board of Finance Chair as well as the Board of Education Chair, because I think this ability to offer our taxpayers a 0% increase for this next year in a time of great economic uncertainty reflects a lot of cooperation across all three boards, as well as sacrifices. And I think it will provide the public some level of predictability in a time of great uncertainty, while also maintaining services. I agree with a lot of the discussion tonight that we have huge capital needs that we as a town are facing. And I think we're going to have to really sharpen our pencils and think very hard about how we're going to proceed in addressing some of these major capital projects that our town is going to be facing with schools, as well as the academy. But I think that this buys us some time and it gives the public a chance to rest easy and some confidence knowing that next year they have some security in the next year and predictability. And I think if we can continue to all three of us work closely together to tackle these problems together, the three boards together, because we all recognize the demands that are there, but also need to understand that we might be operating in a very different world now, in a very different economic climate. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for all your efforts, everybody here tonight, as well as the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen. And I think we're doing a good service to our community tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. And I agree. And I want to echo the sentiment. I do believe that these three boards are looking towards the future. I think we are being cognizant of the needs of the current taxpayers. I think we're being responsible, and I think we are working together. I think the Board of Selectmen deciding to hold off on the referendums and having the support of the Board of Education was an incredibly, difficult decision, but a smart decision based on where we are right now and the unknowns. So I respect the fact that we are all trying to do our best within these difficult, unprecedented times. I do acknowledge the need for capital. It is something that I have always fought hard for. I just believe at this time, I think Peggy, as you said, it gives us time to take pause. It gives us time to look at things in light of the new world that we're living in. There are things, Jude, I cannot argue with you, that are going to have to be done. And that is something that we need to keep our eye on. But I think right now our goal is not to overtax people or tax people on presumptions. Our goal is to maintain services and keep the town moving at a level that maintains the health and well-being of our taxpayers. So again, I thank everyone for their cooperation. I thank everyone for working together. I want to do a shout out to also the town staff that has been tirelessly working on all of our requests, running numbers that I know for some of them are probably saying, are they out of their minds? But they have done it, and they have worked weekends, nights, and I truly appreciate the time that's been put into that. And I know on behalf of the taxpayers, they also are grateful for the efforts that have been put forward.
Stacy and Kristen done a tremendous job in helping us out and always being there for us. So thank you so much.
Lauren too.
And
Yeah,
I
Lauren,
think
that's
Lauren
right.
and-
Thank you. And
Deb Millardo, I think, also deserves a shout out. Those,
Absolutely.
not that everyone is not, but those particular group of people have really been, dare I say, at our beck and call and doing, things that were above and outside the realm of their working hours. So I
And-
appreciate that.
And adding onto that shout out, all of the first responders and emergency services folks that are out there really taking care of all of us within the town. A big thanks to everybody out there working so hard and putting themselves in harm's way so that we can feel a little bit better about our lives. So thanks to everybody out there helping us out.
Agreed. And hopefully we will all get through this sooner rather than later, and we can find whatever our new normal is, and continue to support each other, and work together in order to continue to make Madison a true treasure within New England. Thank you. I need a motion
very
to
much.
adjourn.
So
So
move.
move.
Second? All in
Second.
favor?
Sounds good.
Uh,
All right. Thank you,
Goodbye.
everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.